am I missing the point here? It seems odd to me that the largest carbon emitter in the country receives £11 billion of subsidy for renewable energy.
No, you're not missing the point. It's utterly bizarre. So it's utterly bizarre.
We've had evidence on the concerns about the sustainability of biomass as a source of fuel for BECCS. How concerned are you about that?
There are big challenges about ensuring the sustainability of biomass grown outside the UK. It's not impossible, but it is very difficult. I'm sure you've talked to Drax, and they will tell you all the things that they're trying to do, but ultimately it is very difficult, and it is not something that the UK should be relying on at large scale in terms of biomass imports for greenhouse gas removals.
Perhaps the Minister would like to comment about why Drax isn't included in the emissions trading scheme, because Drax, of course, burns 7 million tonnes of wood. That wood is actually made, as it were, grown in America. Then it's burnt here, and it isn't actually counted in our carbon emissions, which is amazing given that it's the biggest polluter, or the biggest emitter of PM10 in Europe.
The energy lifeblood is made up of biomass, which entails burning primarily wood at higher carbon intensity than coal, at a time when the world should be protecting all existing forests and planting billions of new trees, not cutting them down, especially as a tree is still the most effective carbon capture and storage process in today's world, with a carbon abatement cost still 10 times cheaper than a human-manufactured CCS plant.
Mr. Speaker, I, like many people, have difficulty understanding how burning trees on an industrial scale and pumping carbon dioxide into the atmosphere can be any part of a low-carbon solution, or indeed why the British taxpayer subsidises private companies to do this.
The government is currently subsidising polluting companies, for example Drax, to the cost of £2 million a day. £2 million a day. So would the noble Lord take that back to his department and explain to them that biofuel companies like Drax are not renewable energy?
I was going to go on to ask the Minister whether he has any sight yet of the biomass strategy, which it was claimed last year would come out in 2022. It is now 2022 and those haven't arisen.
Mr. Speaker, the President will be aware of concerns raised about aspects of biomass. So how does he intend to ensure that carbon emissions from this sector and businesses such as wood-burning power stations are reflected in the reformed UK emissions trading system, and how he thinks the COP commitment to protect the world's forests aligns with existing UK government policies for burning imported wood and the considerable UK government subsidies given to this industry?
Drax is currently being classed, this type of energy generation, as renewable, but Drax's power plants are the most polluting sites in Europe. Drax is the single largest source of CO2 emissions in the UK, according to EMBA, the fourth largest emitter in the EU among coal plants. But we do not count this as carbon emissions due to their classifications as renewables.
During her leadership campaign, the now Prime Minister chose to make a big thing of solar panels being on agricultural land. She didn't talk about biomass, which actually takes up far more arable land.
Certainly I would hope that the Minister would address the issue that you have a severely subsidised biomass sector that is competing for timber on forestry on an ongoing basis with a non-subsidised sector that struggles to compete in those particular circumstances.
Well, let's just have a look at your own accounts on that basis, if we can't agree with the whole kind of calculation. I mean, in your own company accounts for the year 2020, you reported that Drax emitted 13.3 megatons of carbon dioxide. You presumably agree with that if it's in your annual accounts.
I do, yeah.
The second largest emitter in the UK was a gas power station owned by RWE, which was 4.3 megatons of carbon dioxide. So you're by far the biggest emitter, aren't you, of carbon dioxide in the UK?
When people first burnt coal, they didn't understand the damage they were doing to the planet, and I think the same is true of wood pellets.
How can it possibly be in the interests of the environment to cut down trees in North America, then use energy to turn them into pellets, then put them on a ship powered by diesel to transfer them across the Atlantic, landing them on the west coast of this country, and then transporting them in a refrigerated container to Drax, and for the taxpayer and the consumer to pay for all of this in the name of saving the planet?